All right. So, never made a YouTube video before, so, you know, quarantine got me wanting to pursue my dreams, my aspirations of failing at YouTube. So, here we go, I guess. So, I'm going to be doing a tier maker. Yes, I know it's 2019 again. Quarantine got time going backwards. And we're going to be doing the we're going to be ranking the NFL quarterbacks. So this has rookies on it. This is for the next season, if it happens. You know, so this is going to be like a projection towards what I think they're going to be next season. It's based on how they performed in the past, but ultimately this is going to be where I think they're at right now as players and how they're going to perform over the next season. So the rookies make sense to be on here. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to be on here. I'm going to change a few of the tiers around. Let's see. I had some planned out. Borderline Elite, I think that's fine. I think that works. Star, that's a little confusing because it's like, where does that fit in with like Elite? You know, like what's the thing? And Star Potential is weird because it implies like youth. I'm just going to say average starter. And then here is going to be below average starters, so guys that can still be starters, but you prefer them not be. This is going to be high-level backups and backups. And then I'm just going to delete this. This isn't going to be a thing. Because these are all like potential, you know, guys that have started games in the past few years. So just going to go in order. I'm not really going to order the tiers. I'm just going to slap them in a tier. Okay. Aaron Rodgers, the first one. Is a weird one. It's one that's already going to make people angry. Because, you know, Packers fans are going to be like, oh, he's still here. And like Vikings fans are going to be like, no, he's fucking here. No. I think Aaron Rodgers is still borderline elite. I think it's a little overblown how he's declined, but I don't think there's nothing to that. I think, he clearly has shown a little bit of a drop-off. How much of that can be attributed to coaching or his weapons at his disposal, his O-line, things like that, who knows? But in terms of performance, I think he's still at a high enough level to be here. Andy Dalton recently lost his job. I think Andy Dalton is the perfect example. You know, they always say the Dalton line. I don't necessarily buy into that too much. I think that implies he's a little bit worse than he is because I think he's an average starter. But let me explain my tiers a little bit real quick while we're, you know, on this. So elite is going to be top of tier, cream of the crop. You know, the guys. You know who I'm talking about here. I only have two guys in this tier. The people in elite are going to be like consistently incredible. I'm very confident they'll play up to an elite level. You know, like Aaron Rodgers would have been there a few years ago for sure. Borderline elite is guys that aren't quite to that level, or I haven't seen enough of them to be confident that they're going to continue playing at an elite level, things like that. But they're at least, you know, very, very high quality, amazing quarterbacks. High-level starters are guys that can win you games. They're guys that they may be game managers, they may not be, but if they're game managers, they're very high-level game managers that, you know, have better physical tools or arm talent than your typical game manager like an Andy Dalton. An average starter is going to be guys that aren't really going to detract from you. They're going to limit what you can do in your offense in terms of maybe going downfield or, depending on the quarterback, the mobility. But they're going to, you know, depending on your offense, be able to run the offense without any hiccups. So it's really scheme dependent. You know, you can scheme these guys to success, but they're not necessarily going to drive a poor offense to victory, you know. Below average starters are going to be guys that you don't really want starting, but if they're your starter, you can win games with them. Depending on your offense and stuff, it's going to be tougher to scheme. They're really going to limit what you can do on offense. High level backups are going to be guys that you're happy to have on your team as the number two. And if you have the starter go down for a couple games, you're going to be fine, and they're going to give you a solid chance to win a game, maybe 50-50. But they're not guys you want playing for an extended period of time. If they are, you're probably going to be picking at the top of the draft. And backups are going to be guys that, they're fine. You don't hate to have them on your team, but you really want to keep them off the field by any means necessary. It's just kind of an emergency situation. It's fine. But, Anyway, moving on. Baker Mayfield. This is a guy that's been here. He's been here. He's been here. I'm going to slap him in the middle. There's going to be a lot of average starters on here. There's a reason it's called average. I'm playing this legitimately. I'm not giving anybody lip service or anything like that. Average means average. It doesn't mean they're bad. Baker Mayfield isn't a bad quarterback. And he has potential. He has high potential. And that's another thing. This doesn't take into account the potential of the players. Baker Mayfield could easily play at this level or in the future, even up here somewhere. Maybe. We don't know. But right now, based on his last season, I'm afraid that this is where he's going to end up this next season. Ben Roethlisberger, until he shows me that he has taken a big step back, I'm going to say he's a high-level starter. He's a guy that can win you games with his arm, and he's done it many times before. He's a guy that, mental. He's got that mental down. He's got immense arm talent despite his age. Until he shows me otherwise, this is where he's going to be. I think he's a great quarterback, even now. This is Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is, in my opinion, a backup at this point in his career. A few years ago, I put him in high-level backup or maybe even below-average starter, but he hasn't got a ton of significant snaps these past few years. But I think in the Patriots system, this is the perfect place for him to be, backing up a young quarterback. This is in the system where he was, most successful and learned the most from Bill Belichick. So he's in the perfect spot, but he's still a backup quarterback for sure. Cam Newton, still a free agent, but I think Cam Newton, is still a high-level starter because, well, you know what? No, you know what? These past few seasons, he's definitely been here, and I don't have any other reason to put him higher than that. He's definitely been up here before, but I think right now he's down here, and there's a reason he's not signed yet because he wants a starting job, and teams are content, seeing what they've got with the guys on their roster. They're not willing to sign Cam Newton. They don't think he's going to play up here, and honestly, he hasn't shown anything over the past few seasons. He's still got that incredible mobility. He's still incredible out of the pocket. He's probably the best quarterback in the league outside Lamar Jackson with his feet. But through the air, he just has taken a clear step back. And that's obvious. I don't think he's bad. He can easily play higher than that. But right now, that's where he has to go. Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz at this point in his career is a high-level starter that has massive injury problems. I know he's played, this is a little overblown, he's played more games than people think after, the media spin that he's missed more games than he actually has. But I think Carson Wentz is a guy who can definitely win you games. He has significant arm talent, great mobility, get outside the pocket. He just hasn't been able to have a consistent enough run of games to put everything together. And when he did, he had an MVP caliber season. And then he got hurt for the playoffs, and they still won the Super Bowl. But I think Carson Wentz is a great quarterback that just needs that consistency to take that next step into potentially being elite. Is this Case Keenum? That's Case Keenum, yeah. Case Keenum, to me, is a below-average starter. Maybe even a high-level backup, but I'm going to put him in below-average starter because he's a guy that, you saw last year with the Redskins. He won some games, lost some games. I don't even really know if he won any games, but he looked good at points and looked bad at points. And that's what you're going to get with Case Keenum. He can play well if you scheme around him and have the weapons, but like with the Redskins, they didn't exactly have a plethora of weapons for him. and the offense around him wasn't incredibly talented. So in that kind of situation, he's kind of destined to fail. He doesn't have that ability to, take the game over and win on his own. I do like Case Keenum, though. He's one of my favorite players in the league since he came out of Houston. That's Chad Henne. That is a throwback. Chad Henne. Chad Henne right now is a backup. He hasn't played significant, if any, snaps over the past few years. He's just a backup quarterback right now. He's in the past been, a serviceable starter, and he's not a bad quarterback. He's getting up there now, and he hasn't had significant snaps. He's just not a guy I would trust to start. He's a solid backup, good guy to have for like a younger quarterback in the QB room. But that's all. Dak Prescott. This is one that's gonna get me shit no matter what. But I think Dak Prescott right now is playing at a high-level starter level. You could argue he's not elevating the offense himself. It's the weapons around him. But I think that a lesser quarterback would not be able to do what Dak has done with those weapons in that offense. And I hate the Cowboys just as much as the next guy. But, I think it's kind of dumb to argue that Dak hasn't performed above expectations and at a good level. He's at least played it at a good level for the Cowboys, whether that be because of his weapons or not. So, at least performance-wise, Dak is playing at a high-level starter level. Daniel Jones, interesting. Daniel Jones, a lot of turnover problems, but he's really talented. He's clearly got a lot of the intangibles and mental aspects more polished than his techniques and stuff. I don't know. He's just a young quarterback that's making young quarterback mistakes, I think. And I don't think his ceiling is particularly high, but I think he's going to play well enough, especially with the Giants adding, an actual tackle to the roster in the draft, assuming Andrew Thomas pans out. Some decent weapons for him. I think if they can get some better blocking for him this season, he can take a step up from that last season and maybe fumble a little less. That might help. Is that David Blau? I don't know if I would even put David Blau on this list, but he is a backup. He did play games. He played snaps last year for the Lions. And he wasn't bad, surprisingly. Undrafted guy, I think. It's kind of wild that he didn't play worse. He wasn't bad. Solid QB. And again, this doesn't take into account the potential of these players. But I think right now you don't want David Blau on the field, for your team. I shouldn't really have to say much about that. Derek Carr, this is another contentious one. I'm going to put him an average starter. I think he's on a level of Andy Dalton, that kind of thing. And I like Andy Dalton and Derek Carr. I think they're both solid quarterbacks. But, they're getting up there in age, and they've shown that they're not going to take, an incredible step. I know Derek Carr had that MVP tier season, but since then he hasn't performed up to that. And a lot of that's injury problems, but that's, that's something I got to take into account, too, is, what they've shown recently and whether it's hampered by injuries or not. Derek Carr hasn't shown me that he's up here. You could easily argue me into putting Derek Carr here, but for right now, I'm going to put him right here. Deshaun Watson, I think it's crazy to argue anything other than this for Deshaun Watson, borderline elite, with his production over the past few seasons, despite a lot of injuries to his receivers and some not so great offensive lines. I know he has Nuke Hopkins, but one weapon isn't an entire offense. The Panthers are trying to prove me wrong by paying Christian McCaffrey an insane amount of money, and we'll see how that goes. But one weapon an offense does not make, and so that tells me Deshaun Watson is making something out of less. He's making a lot out of a little, and that's impressive. He's got the incredible mobility. Not that he's a scrambler, but he's really good at making things happen in and out of the pocket. with his legs and with his eyes, and he's just a solid young quarterback that to me is on that tier right now. And I think he only gets better. It's gonna be interesting to see this next season. This is gonna be a really important season for Deshaun, showing that he can do it without DeAndre Hopkins. And we'll see about that. But for right now, I think he's got to be put in that tier. Another guy in that tier, Drew Brees. And again, him and Aaron Rodgers both. A few years ago, they would be an elite for sure. But Drew Brees, he's clearly lost a lot of his, arm strength and velocity, but he's still got that pinpoint accuracy. Obviously, one of the greatest minds in quarterback history. Still got that incredible intelligence. Runs that offense like a well-oiled machine. He's incredible, obviously, but I just don't think I could put him in elite as of right now. As of those steps he's taken back. Even though they're not incredible steps back, but they are clear steps back in his play. Drew Lock, a good young quarterback. Really fun to watch last season, those few games, but it's only a few games. It's hard to judge a guy off of a few games, but then again, we're about to have to judge guys off of no games with the rookies. I think Drew Lock is going to play at that average starter level. Him and Daniel Jones and the next guy, let's go ahead and group Dwayne Haskins in here too. He's an average starter. I think all three of those guys are in similar situations where Daniel Jones got to show a lot. He got to start basically the entire season, if not literally. I don't remember, but he played a lot more than the other two. But Haskins and Locke, at least, you have to kind of evaluate how you think they're going to play based off of a handful of games from last season. And I don't know. I think they're both solid, and I think they're both going to kind of struggle with consistency, like a lot of young quarterbacks do. And I think that's going to kind of average them out to being right here. But they're going to show flashes probably of being higher, probably flashes of being lower. That's just how it goes with young quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew's another guy. I think average starter level. I don't think his ceiling is as high as a guy like Haskins or Locke or even Jones based on the arm talent. But I think Minshew's a really smart quarterback. He has potential to be like a pretty high tier like game manager type quarterback. He's got a little bit of mobility. He's got them youthful legs. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily on the Minshew mania train, but he's a fun guy, fun character, and a fun player. I'm interested to see how he plays next year. Now that they've got everything behind him and they're going to build an entire offense around him for an entire year, we're going to get to see if Minshew mania is real or not, and that's going to be awesome. Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett to me is going to be in below average starter. I love me some Jacoby Brissett, but he's just too inconsistent, and he's missing a lot of parts to his game that would make me put him higher. He's just not as polished and not as great of a not as talented of a quarterback. He's definitely got the arm talent, but it's either the mental or the mechanics, something technical. He just hasn't put it all together. He can still get better. Obviously, he's still young, but I don't know. It's going to be tough because he's not really going to get a chance in Indianapolis. It'll be interesting to see if they trade him or if he goes somewhere else. Jake Fromm. I think Jake Fromm, this is a tough one. Not a huge Jake Fromm fan. I'm going to put Jake Fromm. He's going to be the first high-level backup. He's a guy, I think in his rookie year, and this is obviously based only on his rookie year, I'm not saying Jake Fromm will never be better than that. I don't know that. But I think next season, from what I've seen from him in college, I watched a lot of SEC, and he just hasn't shown me the type of processing and arm talent that it's going to take to be a great NFL quarterback. I think his floor is higher than a lot of these guys in the draft, but his ceiling I think is pretty low. So I think he's going to come out of the draft and be a really solid backup for the Bills in case Josh Allen goes down. I don't think he's going to lose you games, but I really struggle to see him winning games for you. Okay, Jalen Hurts on the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan. He's my favorite player of all time, college or pros. But I'm not going to be biased here. I'm going to say Jalen Hurts is going to be in that same tier as Jake Fromm year one, because he's really probably not going to play. He's only going to get playing time if Carson Wentz goes down at quarterback, full-time quarterback. But I think they're going to use him kind of a Taysom Hill top beat. We'll see if he's effective in that role. He's definitely got the athleticism to do it. But I think he's a lot smarter of a quarterback than people are giving him credit for. The system in Oklahoma obviously helped him out. But I don't know. I think he showed a lot of development at Oklahoma, too. He clearly was a better quarterback at Oklahoma than he was at Alabama. And I don't know. I just think he's getting underrated by a lot of people, especially Eagles fans, just because of where he was picked, and they don't think he should have. The Eagles, they don't think they should have picked a quarterback that high. That's fine, but that doesn't have anything to do with the player that Jalen Hurts is, and I think his ceiling is a lot higher than a lot of people think. Jameis Winston. Okay. Jameis Winston, I'm going to put in average starter, but don't get me wrong, the man is never average. Average is the worst word to describe Jameis Winston. The man is either up here or down here, and there's really not any in between. I mean, it's crazy. The stats show it too. That's the crazy thing. That's not just some kind of hearsay, kind of meme football talk you see, the reporters talking about buzzwords and shit. That's really how it is. He's either making throws that are, what are you doing? Or how the fuck did he make that throw? It's insane that a man can be that inconsistent, but he is. But it averages out, funny enough, I think, to him being right here. Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff gets a lot of hate. And a lot of it's deserved. But for me, Jared Goff is talented enough to potentially be a high-level starter. It's tough for me to place Jared Goff because I think he's probably the worst guy in high-level starter or the best guy in average starter. If there's a tier in between this, I would put him there, but I don't think it would be populated enough to actually put it. Keep that in mind, but I'm going to put him in high-level starter and project him to take a step back up compared to last year. Jarrett Stidham. Guy I watched in college at Auburn and in a little bit in his freshman year at Baylor. He looked incredible at Baylor as a freshman, but you know how it goes, Big 12 defenses and no tape to study. But at Auburn, he didn't look that great against SEC defenses. He showed flashes, and he's clearly got a lot of talent, but I'm going to believe Bill Belichick when Bill Belichick tells me that he believes in a guy. And I'm going to put him here for now. I think he's going to at least show that level of talent in year one. They're at least going to scheme an offense to where he looks like that. Whether that's where his talent is or not, he's clearly talented. But he's also a second-year quarterback that didn't get any meaningful snaps last year, if any, in the regular season. Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is a high-level starter for me. He's in that same kind of Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, spoiler alert, top mold, where it's like a game manager, but on a high level, like Alex Smith, guys like that they can win you games, but they're at heart they're game managers, but they're so talented, and they're a step above their typical game manager, like an Andy Dalton, that they're in that high level starter range despite the way they play the game. Joe Burrow. This is a total projection, obviously. I'm going to put him in high-level starter. I trust Joe Burrow to take the biggest step or have the easiest time transitioning into NFL football of any of the rookies. That's just how talented he is. I mean, he's just a great player. I saw a lot of him last year in college, especially the Alabama game. That hurt, but it tells me that he's too talented to flop. I'm probably wrong. He probably will bust, and he'll be like the biggest bust of all. He's the new Jamarcus Russell out of LSU. But I don't know. To me, the eye test, he looks so good. The stat test, he looks incredible. I don't know. I can't see him. I mean, I could definitely see him playing like an average starter level, but I don't see him being terrible. I don't see him being bad next year. He'll have rookie quarterback hiccups, as all of them will. Jordan Love, I think Jordan Love, as of right now, is the type of guy that has this kind of talent. Not talent. He's obviously extremely physically gifted, but that processing and the ability to read the field needs to improve massively, or he's going to end up here. But next year he doesn't really have to play, assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt. But I think if he has to step in for an injured Aaron Rodgers, he won't be terrible. I trust that Packers coaching staff. They did a pretty good job last year of maximizing their talents. I think if he has to play, he'll be fine, but he won't be incredible. He'll show flashes because he has that kind of talent where he shows those flashes where you just think this guy's incredible. But there was too few far between. That's where he has to go right now. Josh Allen, another similar to Jameis, actually, in that he's inconsistent, in that sometimes he flashes like high stuff because his arm talent is incredible, but he just has too many bonehead plays, and the accuracy is not there. Not necessarily bonehead. I don't think he's an unintelligent quarterback. I just think the accuracy, the technique is not quite there. So I think that's where he's going to be next season. Josh Rosen, at this point, Josh Rosen is going to have to go into high-level backup for me because he's clearly got talent. He's more talented than these guys in the backup row, but he just hasn't put everything together. I don't know. Again, he's the kind of guy, like the high-level backups, like you don't hate if he has to come in. You'd rather that than like a third-string quarterback or a David Blau or Chad Henne, but he just hasn't shown it that he's a starter in the league yet, and I hate that because I was pretty high on him coming out, but he hasn't shown that. Justin Herbert, I think Justin Herbert has a big chance to struggle in the NFL in his rookie season. I think this rookie season he's going to play down to this below-average starter ranking. I think he's going to on a similar level as these other guys, but the test is going to be the season after that. Can he put it together? Can he improve? What does he look like after that? That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Justin Herbert. He has, I mean, if you've seen the Brett Coleman video, I'm not basing all of my thoughts on Justin Herbert off that video, but I agree with a lot of what he was saying about how he looks similar to Trubisky a lot of times, and that's not a good thing. And Trubisky didn't look horrible in his rookie season, but I think Herbert is set up to have a similar kind of rookie season and kind of struggle a lot with the mental aspects especially. Kirk Cousins, spoiled it earlier, but he's high-level starter. I think Kirk Cousins gets a lot of shit that is undeserved. He's another one of those high-level game managers. He's clearly very talented, got a good head on his shoulders, but he's not on that. He's not any level higher than that. He's not a complete, absolute star of a quarterback, but that doesn't mean he's bad. That is, he's better than that. He's a good quarterback. And I don't see how you can watch Minnesota and think he's a bad quarterback. Kyle Allen. I think Kyle Allen is kind of this high-level backup tier, maybe below-average starter. He showed some really good stuff for the Panthers last season, but he also showed some rough turnover issues. But I think Kyle Allen, he's a guy, I understand why, I think the Redskins, I understand why the Redskins traded for him. I think it was the Redskins. Because he's got a lot of polish, and I think he's a great backup with starter potential. Kyler Murray, this guy, he's on that high-level starter right now, I think. He's already that good. He improved every game last season. He looked really good by the end of the season. And he has the potential to be the next, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes and blow up and have an elite season, but I can't project that. I'm not going to project that. I just think he's going to hopefully ride that wave he ended last season on and play very well. This was going to get me some hate, but Lamar Jackson is going to go in borderline elite. One season of elite production isn't enough for me to put him and say, I think he's clearly going to say us take a step back, because it's really kind of almost impossible to replicate what he did last season. It's very rare to do that. I know Pat Mahomes just did it, but he's going to have to do that to prove to me he's an elite. Not that, borderline elite is obviously in great company, but I'm not comfortable putting him in elite yet. Marcus Mariota. I think Marcus Mariota is a below-average starter or a high-level backup. I'm going to put him in below-average starter. He's the kind of guy that, I don't know. He seems like a good dude, but on the field, he just hasn't shown that he was worth taking number 2 overall, and that's just it sucks, but that's where he is right now in his career. I think he's a great backup. The Raiders got a great backup. Mason Rudolph. I think Mason Rudolph is a high-level backup. What he showed last season is what happens when you put a guy that's a high-level backup into a bunch of games and make him start a bunch of games. That's what happens. He's got talent, and he's not. He's going to give you a coin flip's chance to win a game. He kept them in a lot of games. But then he also fell apart in some games. And that's going to happen with guys like that, especially young guys. They're going to make mistakes. He's not terrible or anything. He's not a starter. He's not a starting quarterback. Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has been, at least statistically, a little up and down the past few seasons. He almost has like a great season, then a kind of all-right season, then a great season, then a not-so-great season. So I'm going to put him in high-level starter right now. He's definitely capable of putting together elite seasons. The man won the MVP. He's capable of that, but I just don't think he's consistent enough in doing that for me to put any higher. And Matt Stafford's another guy similarly in that same level. He gets a lot of people that aren't Lions fans underrate Matt Stafford a lot, I think, and I hate it. He doesn't deserve it. He's a very good quarterback. I think he's shown. We've clearly seen his ceiling at this point. He's not an elite quarterback, but he can win you games. He's the kind of guy that can take chances, and he has an incredible arm. He can win you games, and that's not to be underrated. Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky to me is the kind of guy that's a backup quarterback. And I know high level and Mitch Trubisky don't really go together very well. But I think you've got a bad taste in your mouth because he's had to start every game for the Chicago Bears, and he should not be starting. He's got physical gifts, but can't put it together on the field. Again, it's sad like Mariota, but he just hasn't shown anything that he tells me he's a starting quarterback. Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles is another kind of journeyman like Keenum or Brissett and Mariota, where it's just they've got talent and they can come in and start and win games, but they're not any higher than that. Like, if they're your starter, you're looking to replace them. And all of those teams that had those guys as starters did. Not that Nick Foles was ever... Well, last year with the Jags, I guess he was the favorite to start. And if it weren't for the injury, he may have. But, Pat Mahomes, he's the first of my 2 elites. Obviously, it's Pat Mahomes. I'm not even going to say anything. It's fucking Pat Mahomes. Watch a Chiefs game. Phillip Rivers. Man, I'm a big Phillip Rivers fan, big Phillip Rivers supporter. But right now, he is a high-level starter, nothing more, nothing less. He's got the talent. He's a great quarterback, but he's getting up there, and he was never at as high a level as Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. And with the regression, it's taken him down a step to where I think he's still a really good quarterback. He's got the mental aspect, obviously, but he's just not quite there physically anymore. RG3 is a backup quarterback. He's in the perfect situation, much like Brian Hoyer, where they can maximize the fact that that is their backup, and they're really good backups in those spots, but not enough to put him in high level backup. Russell Wilson is my other elite. That's the only two elites that are going to be on here. Wilson has just been so consistently incredible. It's amazing. Every time I turn on a Seahawks game, the man doesn't take L's. Like, he's just so consistent. It's incredible. He's the most consistent guy in the league at that high of a level. It's insane. It's insane to me how he's done it for this long. Especially after being so underrated out of the draft. It's just crazy to me. Russell Wilson is such a good player. I shouldn't have to explain why Russell Wilson's a good player. Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is an interesting one. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick has flashes of, game-winning ability, but in reality, he's a below-average starter. Every team that has him as their starter replaces him a year later. And there's a reason for that. It's partially his age, but also it's because of his inconsistency. He's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He'll throw, a bunch of touchdowns in one game and a bunch of ants in the next one. Everybody knows Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been around for long enough. Ryan Tannehill, great season last season. Last season he put him here. But I think, as with most things, it's going to regress to the mean, and Ryan Tannehill is going to have a little bit of regression. Not that he's a bad quarterback, very talented quarterback. And he very well may play up to that last season. But I'm hedging my bets, and I'm going to say he has a little bit of regression. And he's a high level in that tier. He's one of the better guys in that tier. I'll give him that. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's a frustrating one. I keep saying talented, but a lot of these guys are talented. I mean, they're NFL quarterbacks. They're obviously talented, or they wouldn't be NFL quarterbacks. But Sam Darnold coming out, man, he was one of the most talented guys in that class of incredible quarterbacks. I'm gonna have to slap him in average starter. He's kind of fluctuated between being a bang average starter and a below average starter. I think he's probably eventually gonna kind of mellow out into just being a solid starting quarterback next season. So, Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill back up as a pure quarterback, obviously. But as a weapon, he's a good player to have on your team. I don't know if I would sign him to the contract the Saints did. But as a pure quarterback, that's what this is really taking into account. He's got to go into backup. You don't want him starting a bunch of games. But he's a good player to have on your team. Teddy Bridgewater. I'm going to put Teddy in average starter. I think he's shown enough to say that he can consistently, not make mistakes and be a game manager. I'd like for him to show what he showed, a lot of what he showed at Louisville and early in his career, where he showed them flashes of being incredible. But I think the injuries have kind of taken him back a little bit, and he's playing a little more conservatively. And that's fine. He's still a good quarterback. He doesn't really throw ints. He doesn't fumble the ball. He doesn't make big mistakes to lose you games. But we'll see in Carolina if he can, with a solid starting job, take a step. Tom Brady. I'm not betting against Tom Brady. I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady. He's going to go in borderline elite. Never count out touchdown Tom. He until he shows me otherwise. He has regressed a little bit, obviously. He's fucking 42 or whatever. But until he shows me anything different, that's the tier he's going to be in. Tua Tagovailoa. I think if he plays next season a lot, which he might not, I think that's about where he's going to play up to. It's going to be rough for him to translate to the NFL. I watched a lot of Tua in college, obviously. I've seen probably most of the games he started, because sometimes you don't tune in if we're playing Liberty or fucking, I don't know, Chattanooga or some Tennessee Chattanooga, I think we played, or some shit like that. Sometimes you don't tune in, and then he only plays like a quarter anyway, so who cares? his play style is not built for the NFL. Unless he changes a lot of the way he plays, it's going to be a rough going for him. I hate to say that, but I'm really rooting for Tua. He's awesome. He's a great guy. He's really talented. He's really smart, but he's going to have to make some adjustments. And finally, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor to me is a below average starter. He can start, and I think he should over Justin Herbert next season, at least until Herbert is ready. I think Herbert will eventually play for the Chargers, but especially with the lessened off season and the limited workouts that the rookies are going to have, it's going to be tough for rookie quarterbacks. It's going to be rough for rookies in general, but especially quarterbacks. So yeah, there you go. There's the tier list. Probably all disagreements. I'm not claiming that I'm a genius. I'm not claiming this is all. Obviously, it's not accurate. We don't know. And I could, I'm open to people talking about what I did wrong and telling me your criticisms. But yeah, I'm not trying to step on any toes, say somebody's shit. None of these quarterbacks are shit. They're in the NFL. They're not shit. Maybe Trubisky's shit. No. Trubisky's not, he's got talent, obviously. But, alright, so that was my first video. Probably went on really long, but hopefully I can cut that shit down. I like watching long videos, so maybe put it on the fucking background while you're doing something else. That's what I do with a lot of YouTube videos. So, hell yeah, I'm going to try to make more videos soon. I'm not going to make any promises on when, what date, but maybe more tier maker. This is easy to do. Play some games. I probably will try to stream on Twitch. I'm going to try to do that. My internet here kind of sucks, but I'm going to try. We'll see how it goes, but hell yeah. Alright, see you later.